Gets 134 here.
And I'm Average Joe Squad as always.
And welcome to another episode of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, video games, and everything in between. As always, we ask you.
Remember the hyphen.
So we want to forgive us as we're eating here. We had another vlog set up for tonight, later tonight, but the weather is shit. So we're filming on lunch. So
also, we have new equipment. This is on an iPad, and we actually have lighting now.
Yeah, we actually have a big screen, so enjoy looking at more of the car and our ginormous
nothing in the back
in our huge light system. So
watch as I turn the light directly onto the camera.
No, do not do that. This thing, for reference, when I tested it last night, was brighter than my room's light bulb. Like, it actually was like I had turned the light back on. It was that bright. So, it's Spidey-Mas again, as always. And so, we decided that since we can't do the big one until tomorrow, we're going to do a little one tonight. And it's tied into what we were thinking about doing. Because it's the origins of the character we wanted to talk about after this. So,
my bae.
So, as you all know, him and I are big Spider-Man fans. And we're kind of Spider-Man fans that we even though we don't like certain storylines, it's lot into the earth. Shed.
I was just making sure it was recording because the light blocks out the timestamp.
Yeah, we're good. Okay. So, but like one thing him and I both agree on, and I know
unpopular opinion inbound. You thought our us thinking Alien Resurrection is better than Alien 3 was bad. Get ready. Buckle your seatbelts, buckaroos.
So, a story came out in the 90s known as the Clone Saga. It's widely considered by pretty much most people to be one of the worst Spider-Man stories ever written. I disagree. And that's kind of...
Anything by Dan Slott's worse.
Honestly, well, to be fair, I don't think him and I agree that it's a phenomenal story. It's bloated, it's got a lot of unnecessary characters, some really bad art and writing, but...
It's the best story ever written.
Well, he thinks it's the best story ever written.
It's the never-ending story.
Oh. Yeah, it is. But honestly, like, I think there's things to be liked about the story and a lot that's not. So, welcome to the episode I like to call In Defense of the Clone Saga. So, for reference, to give anyone an idea, basically, way back in the 70s, Peter went through this thing called the First Clone Saga, where basically college professor Miles Warren, after the death of Gwen, went crazy and cloned Peter and Gwen to get revenge on Peter and to...
Because he was in love with Gwen, and it was kind of... Even by today's standards, it's weird. I'm sure back then it was even weird.
Oh, yeah. But basically... Peter fights the clone. The Jackal accidentally blows up Shea Stadium where they're in. And the Jackal dies, and Peter thinks the clone died. Or at least what he believed was the clone.
Also, sorry to interrupt. Did I mention that the Jackal's back in the new Spider-Gwen comics?
That doesn't surprise me.
He's actually jumped into Gwen's world.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and like it's creepy. I'll have to show it to you later. It's really creepy.
So is it regular Jackal or is it Ben Reilly creepy?
It's Warren. It's Warren.
Okay.
It's Warren. It's not Ben.
So, come the 90s. So, the mid to late 80s and the early 90s were a rough period for Spider-Man. His parents came back from the dead only to be killer robots. Harry died. Him and MJ were constantly... marriage was constantly strained. He was buried alive by Kraven the Hunter.
Lost the spider buggy.
Lost the spider... That happened way before the...
It's a tragedy, nevertheless.
And so... Peter was going through this point where he decided he was no longer going to be Peter Parker, that Parker was dead, he was the Spider. Because they wanted to make him dark for some ungodly reason.
It sells.
But all this happened and culminated into trying to figure out a way to revitalize Spider-Man. So they decided, what if the clone came back? So He didn't die during that fight. He was just knocked unconscious and fell asleep and was in the smokestack, but woke up and climbed out of it. And for 5 years in story, the clone was living on the other side of the country as Ben Reilly.
Just kind of wandering the country.
It's kind of, yeah.
And for those who don't know, Riley is Aunt May's maiden name.
And Ben, obviously, from Uncle Ben.
Yeah, so that's where they get that from.
Yeah. So, but Ben has kept in contact with Aunt May throughout the years. Which, I don't know how May doesn't recognize it's Peter over the phone. But whatever. And unfortunately, Aunt May falls into a coma on the phone while she's talking to him. And so Ben realizes that he needs to go back and see May before she dies. And as they say, the rest is history. So, like, for what was supposed to be like a year to a year and a half, eventually became 3 to 4 years worth of storyline where sometimes Peter was the clone, sometimes Ben was the clone, sometimes neither of them was the clone. And eventually it culminated with them realizing that they had to find a way to end it, and the only way they didn't know how, to bring back Norman Osborn.
And also, during most of the storyline, Mary Jane was pregnant with her and Peter's first child, which they were going to name after Aunt May.
Unfortunately, thanks to Norman Osborn, Mary Jane has an accident that causes the baby to be born stillborn, or so we were told.
Or she's kidnapped. They've never given a clear answer on this. Because not only was there the original Clone Saga, like this is, or second Clone Saga, I guess is what we call it because of the first one. Years later, Tom DeFalco and another writer, I can't remember the guy's name for the life of me.
I can't remember.
They did another version called Real Clone Saga, which was a 6-issue miniseries, correct?
Yeah.
6? Mm-hmm. That tried to fix a lot of the issues Clone Saga had, and to varying degrees of success.
I argue the problem there is it's actually too short. Like,
yeah.
It should have been 12 issues instead of 6.
It shouldn't be like a Bible, like how the omnibuses are.
Oh,
like,
good
because
Lord, those omnibuses are so
I have both Clone Saga omnibuses, and I have the first volume of the Ben Reilly omnibus.
I have a few floppies of that. It's
a book. It's basically like a huge Bible. It's like a dictionary almost.
Oh yeah. But yeah, and so that's the basic premise. Eventually, Ben dies and dissolves, proving that he is the clone, and that Peter was the one true Spider-Man. And then Peter went through another dark age thanks to Howard Mackie and other people.
We also don't talk about his kid at all in the main continuity, basically. It's mentioned, but then they just kind of like, we just don't talk about it.
Yeah. So, okay, so I know what you're thinking. Though that sounds really convoluted and stupid, and you're right. You're not entirely wrong.
Spider Side, though. Spider Side was amazing.
But as a whole, I don't think the story is completely bad. I think there are some good things to it. Particularly, I think Ben Reilly was a great character. I really like Ben.
I love Ben.
You know, he struggles to figure out what his place in the world should be. You know, he tries to help Peter because he doesn't want Peter's life. He just wants to exist and kind of know the man that he is technically brother to. But...
And at the end of it all, he basically he does what Peter would have done. He decides to become a hero.
I also really like his Scarlet Spider outfit. I mean, I like his Spider-Man costume, but I really love his Scarlet Spider costume. I actually think it's more what a real Peter Parker would do in real life if instead of making a entertainer's costume, because like,
what's your name, kid?
I'm the Human Spider.
That's it. That's the best you got?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
But
I just watched the first Raimi film again. It was on TV the other day.
But like, I like that. You know, because like, Ben is actually an interesting character to me. I mean, he actually managed to do something that Peter never could. Defeat Venom by himself without sonic guns or fire. Did you spill fries in my car?
Yeah, I can't get them. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
They're kind of stuck in the gears.
And they'll fly back when I go down the hill. But it's whatever. I'll clean them out.
I apologize.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So like I actually really like his first fight with Venom because he uses the stingers and the impact webbing, which would actually become a staple in Peter's armory. Because like the most interesting thing Peter invented in a while in that was that he managed to create like a warning light on his web shooters to tell him when he was getting low on web fluid. Because that whole, oh, Peter never has enough web fluid thing got old after a while.
Yeah.
Like,
which is why they don't do it in the Spider-Man PS4 game, because that game would be infinitely harder.
Like, the only time I like that is when Peter, like, does something ridiculous, like web Iron Man to a wall using all the the webbing he has, because that's cool. It's also kind of why I didn't mind the organic web shooters in the Raimi films, because I'm like, you know what, I'm happy I don't have to deal with him being like, oh, I gotta get away, oh no, I'm out of web fluid, because that gets old after a while. But yeah, like, I really like Ben's outings as the Scarlet Spider and as Spider-Man, because I think he really does do a good job, especially if you missed, like, the old, funny, humorous Spider-Man who had been absent for a very long time. And, you know, like he said, I like that Ben actually, you know, even though he does eventually die, he goes down swinging, which is one of the things I think worked really well. What are some of your favorite things about the Clone Saga?
OTP being preggers.
That is pretty good too. I did like that. Like, it just seemed the most natural thing to do was to, you know, Peter became married. He's growing up. It made sense for me for him to become a father.
Yeah.
You know.
And then Dan Slott had to come around and.
Well, him and Joe Quesada.
Him and Joe Quesada just had to shit on the whole deal.
Yeah, but like, cause like it was actually kind of an interesting step for their relationship, and just interesting to see how the two of them would handle it. You know, there's a lot of story potential for having a Spider-Man with children, as both the MC2 and the Renew Your Vows storyline had. Where, like, Peter has to get, like, a family car. You know, should he be Spider-Man while also, you know, having a kid? You know, there's a lot of story potential there. No matter what J.J. Abrams did in his Spider-Man comic.
We're not talking about that. That thing's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
I don't even care that it's not done yet. It's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
The first issue sucked.
It did.
And the sad thing is, I'm probably going to review that at some point.
Yeah, I know.
Once I get my every Spider-Man comic review thing going on my channel. Which is like it's in an ever developing form of development hell, basically.
Yeah, it's true. But like it worked really well. Like, because like one of my favorite lines about that whole thing is that, like, you know, this, like, where MJ's like, this is our happy ending, Peter. We've earned it. I'm like, yeah, you two have, because like you guys have gone through a lot of hell to actually get where you are. I also really thought, like, the death of Aunt May and the Amazing issue 400 was actually really well done.
Same.
Albeit...
That was probably one of the better ways they've tried to get rid of... They've tried to kill May off. Like, that one felt like a proper send-off.
You know, because, like, she comes out of her coma, and the doctors even, like, say, you know, it's unbelievable she's came out. It's almost like her body probably gave her, like, enough strength to go for one more day to kind of, you know, make sure accounts are settled and everything's going to be okay.
Did you just reference one more day in my presence?
Really?
I'm sorry. Saw the opportunity.
Not like, you know, like she congratulates Peter and MJ on being pregnant, about how, like, this new life is coming into the world. She talks with Peter about their lives and all the stuff that's happened. And then Peter takes her up to the top of the Empire State Building, and Aunt May admits that she's always known that he was Spider-Man. I've always argued she only knew after issue 200, when after he confronts the burglar. He's like, I don't want to hurt you.
It's not like how MJ is known for a while, depending on which continuity and which thing. Because I've always been one of the people. I'm like, she's known for a while. Like,
Aunt May said she's known from the beginning, and like she's like, I couldn't cope with the fact that you were Spider-Man. But I honestly believe more that she knew after issue 200 when the burglar... Because after Peter fights the burglar and the burglar dies, like, you know, Aunt May is frightened, and Spider-Man just like, please, I just want to help you get home. I don't want to hurt you. I just want to get you back with your... Like, and I think right there, then and there, she finally... Either she's had an inkling and doesn't want to deny it. You right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you made like this face. I didn't know if like you swallowed your pop wrong or something.
Nah, just keep going. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. And so, you know, Aunt May like says that, and then unfortunately she collapses, and we get the scene where she's on her deathbed, and you know, Peter and her say her goodbyes, and she asks him to recite Peter Pan, because that was what she used to read Peter when he was a boy. And you get that scene where she just passes away, and Peter says the whole "first star on the left, straight on till morning," and I'm like,
and I say MJ's there, and Anna's there.
Ben's
chilling out on the roof.
The only thing that kind of ruins it is the part where Ben's
I'm
like,
here
"Here too,"
like,
because it really dates the book.
Like I feel
like had Ben lived, that wouldn't have been so bad.
Yeah, but it's just it hasn't aged well. It comes off wrong.
Yeah, it comes off like, oh, I'm sad too, and I'm like, that's. And to be fair, I don't think that was implied, because it's supposed to be like, oh no, I'm alone on the top of the roof, and I can't even be there when she passes on.
Yeah,
I just know because like I can hear them sobbing, and he realizes that she died without him ever meeting her. I'm like, that's really rough. That, and of course the part at the end where this guy who's been chasing Kane comes and arrests Peter because they have matching fingerprints, so they think Peter, even though like Peter would argue like, I've never been to Utah.
Yeah.
Not only that, like in this world with superheroes that can like transform their bodies, I'm like, you can't account for that.
Yeah,
but then again, that's always been a problem with law in comic books, where like it clearly doesn't account for the fact that like superheroes are a thing.
Yeah.
Because like
which, I mean, on the one hand makes sense. It's that they're clinging to the idea that, you know, superheroes can't be criminals.
Well, that's a load of horse shit. Like, if you
it's all bullshit.
The fact that the Avengers are technically card-carrying members of S.H.I.E.L.D. denies that bullshit. Like, clearly superheroes have, like, it's really because, like, then that means, like, they couldn't actually put villains away in the prison, because then, like, they'd be like, well, a superhero, like, caught me and beat me up.
I want to press charges.
Yeah. Clearly there has to be some sort of, like...
It's like science in comic books. It's... You gotta suspend the belief for quite a bit sometimes when it comes to the science.
Science, I'm willing to, like, because I'm like, you know what,
it's an ever-evolving field.
Well, that, and I'm like, you know what, not every comic has to fully fully make me buy this thing is real.
Yeah.
It's more the law thing that bothers me, because like our law are always constantly changing because of stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So like it makes more sense to me that like they would. But you know, it's whatever. I also really like Kane. Like I know he looks really 90s and edgy, but I do like the concept of Kane.
Yeah, I also like
where he's
Kane.
a failed clone of Spider-Man that like due to like deformities and stuff has gained like
I happen to like clones.
I know
as you've heard multiple times, like for reference, and spoiler alert for those who haven't read the most recent Ghost Spider run for Spider-Gwen. Basically, she goes into the 616 continuity and goes to school. And Miles Warren, that clone of Gwen, exists already.
Yeah.
And so it's literally, there's two Gwens running around. And I remember the first time I showed it to him, I was like, bruh, we got clones. Everything's better.
It's super weird, because like technically that clone of Gwen should be like way older than high school age.
Well, no, they're in college.
Okay.
Because in Ghost Spider, I want to say Gwen is older. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, they've aged her up? Because I thought she was in high school.
She's aged up in Ghost Spider, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Someone in the comments correct me if I'm wrong.
To be fair, I love the idea of Kane. And I like that they kind of played that he wasn't completely evil. That it was more he wanted to actually protect Peter because he thought Ben was evil. For some reason. I don't know. The only thing I don't like about his powers is that it's inconsistent how his future sight works. But like they've gotten better at that over the years. And to be fair, I've liked that Kane has been around. I liked him as the second Scarlet Spider. I loved his Scarlet Spider outfit.
He shows up in MC2. I'm pretty sure he's referenced in Renew Your Vows, because Annie has the same kind of precognition power.
Well, that in that universe, they could always play up that, you know, Ben actually is on the side of the angels again.
Yeah.
My only complaint is nowadays they try to play him off as being kind of unhinged in the Scarlet Spider book because, like, Ben is trying to redeem himself. I'm like, no!
Dude,
did you not read Golden Conspiracy?
Yeah, I'm like, no, nobody did. Remember, that's why Dan Slott hates us.
I know.
It's not. It's the readers in the comic book store's fault because we didn't buy his shitty work.
Yeah, I know.
As you can tell, this show is very anti Dan Slott.
Yeah.
In fact, I have been trying to convince him for a while that we should do a rant video just about bashing Dan Slott.
No.
And then I'll tag him in it on Twitter. Just to get that reaction. Then I'll print it out and I'll frame it in my house.
Also,
That's how much I dislike him.
I also thank Kane for killing off the Grim Hunter, the stupid first child of Craven the Hunter that was, I'm the Grim Hunter and I've got a spear and a mechanical arm. Like, he was the lamest thing.
It was the most 90s looking motherfucker I've ever seen in my life.
Both of his sons are terrible. Like, his second son, Alyosha, I'm like, no, stop trying to make Craven eventually that guy actually turned good and then got his neck snapped by, or no, the first son became a weird lion monster thanks to the Grim Hunt shit. And then he kills Alyosha and then he makes his creepy little daughter hunt the older brother, and then we never saw him again.
Probably the best.
No, like, the whole Craven has, like, a family, and, like, they're gonna help him hunt the the spider people. I'm like...
It's like KG Beast. It's probably better we just don't hear from him.
No, to be fair, I don't mind KG Beast coming back, because I'm like, you know what, just make him, like, this outdated... Like, because they had Captain Nazi rolling around Batman for a while.
Yeah, I remember that, but...
Until Red Hood killed him.
To me, the highlight of the Clone Saga is the ending. When Norman comes back. Like, to me...
Oh, we lucked out, my man.
Oh, yeah. To me, the most essential part of it is that at the end of it, it comes down to, as it usually does, Norman Osborn and Peter Parker. And basically, Norman shows up and he throws Peter around for a bit. Meanwhile, Mary Jane is giving birth to baby May while this is all happening.
Yeah.
And Norman basically, goes on and he's like, I'm gonna finally defeat you. And poor Peter, who still believes he's the clone, is just like, you got the wrong guy. you want the other one.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, Norman's like, oh, you mean, like, he pulls Ben out, and, like, he's beating the shit out of Ben.
Yeah.
And he's just like a victory over him means nothing. He's been the clone all along. You're the real one. I can't, like, Norman basically just reveals he's orchestrated the entire Clone Saga. He's been manipulating so many aspects of Peter's life because, he defeated him and he killed his only son and all this stuff. It comes down to this moment that I always think about a lot when I think about the relationship between the Green Goblin and Spider-Man, is that Norman basically talks about, he's like, no matter what I do, you always get back up. What do I have to do to make you stay down? To which, Peter's response is, I'm not ever going to give you that satisfaction.
Yeah. Peter's like, I get up to spite you, man. Like, I get up because if I fail, like, if I give you what you want, then that kills, like, the memory I have of Gwen, and I lose everyone who I love will give up on me, and I'm not going to do that. I get up just to spite you. And I do love the scene where he's like, no, this isn't about Spider-Man and Green Goblin. And Peter rips his mask off, and Norman's is like, this is between me and you. Like, Peter Parker and Norman Osborn. And it's very well done. Like, I know a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but they came up with that at the last minute. I'm like, yeah, but they still pulled it together.
The writing on it is solid. Like, it's probably some of the most solid writing in the Clone Saga, period.
I also really liked the Osborn journals, where it actually does give you a decent timeline. It actually does kind of have a logical sense, where it's been like 7 years since the death of Gwen, and for all that time, like, Norman was chilling in Europe trying to rebuild his empire and stuff, and like, it actually works for me, like, because I've always argued that it's only been it's only been like 15 years since Peter Parker has been Spider-Man.
Not to mention they reference back to that in MC2 later on.
Yeah, like, I always argue Peter's about like 30. Maybe a little younger, like 28 or 29. Yeah. Like my age, actually.
I always say him and MJ are the same age. If not, maybe MJ's a year younger.
Yeah, I argue MJ's like
There's a little bit of a give and take there. Because it's one of those things that the canon has never really...
Well, I mean, they both went to college together, so I don't know. It's weird.
Well, like I said, just probably either a year below or above, if anything. But regardless, like I said, that whole scene to me is some of the most potent writing in the Clone Saga, because... Yeah. It's so great. Like, it really encapsulates how these two to quote the Raimi films,
Yeah.
we could work together. We could destroy. We could fight each other again and again and again and again and again until we're both dead. Is that really what you want?
Which, to be fair,
because that's kind of just the relationship they're doomed interlocked with. Not totally unlike Joker and Batman, where Batman won't kill Joker because of his ideology that I can't kill you. Joker ain't gonna kill him because he's like, you're too much fun to have around.
To be fair, the thing with Norman is Norman doesn't want to kill Peter. Norman wants to make Peter his son, or to
humiliate him.
Yeah, humiliate him, prove that he is superior.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man, it's not like trust me, Spider-Man, if he could, if he were a different person, he would kill
Kane
Norman.
probably would have killed Norman.
Oh, yeah. In my opinion, if you really wanted to do it where Norman finally died, have it where, he tries to lick his wounds and then Kane is just sitting there like, hey, Norman. You
seem to think I subscribe to such niceties.
No, he'll be like, I know you Parkers, and then Kane's like, that's just it. Me. That's just it, Norman. You got the wrong Parker. And then he just Marka Kane's him. I've been like, yeah. I would have lived.
Somebody find me a fan comic or a fan fic.
I know there's a fan story where Norman escapes, because he does escape at the end of this story.
As per.
Or no, I thought he got he gets arrested actually.
He gets arrested because
that goes into the Hobgoblin Lives story where he is in prison, and then after Hobgoblin he breaks Hobgoblin out at the end of that to try and prove that he's the better Goblin between the two of them. Which is sadly the only time those two are ever together, because the lesser goblins have fought each other, like Harry and Jason Mason Macendale, who is the worst thing ever. One day I want to do a whole thing where I talk about the Hobgoblin with you, because I love the Hobgoblin, and in some ways I kind of like him more than Norman.
I also think didn't Normie and Phil fight at one point?
No, Normie was maybe in the MC2, but
I can't remember. I'm gonna have to go back and look. I swear,
I was about to say
I almost feel like that's happened. If not, that was probably a lost opportunity.
I honestly thought it would have been kind of cool if Phil as an older mentor was found out about Normie and he was like, no, I want to help this kid actually. He'll still want to be the Goblin, but maybe I can keep him on the straight and narrow sort of thing. That'd have been interesting, But yeah, no, and I like you said, I think that works really well. And to be fair, it was either him or Harry they were going to pick to actually, because I've read the biographic about this story, and I've pieced a lot of.
In real Clone Saga, it has another totally different version of how it works.
Isn't it actually Harry in that?
Yeah, it's actually Harry, and he has a clone of Norman, I think.
Yeah, to be honest, to me, for me, the only person that it would make sense would be Norman or Dr. Octopus. Just because Dr. Octopus...
And Doc Ock's dead at this point in the comics.
Yeah, but I mean...
Temporarily.
That's one of the few things I'm I liked his fight with Kane. He at least goes down swinging, but he still gets taken down pretty fast, and he dies via getting his neck snapped. And then he gets resurrected by the Hand. Because that's what I want to see resurrect Doc Ock. Not some sort of cloning thing. No. We got to bring magic into this. Because, Spider-Man and magic always work out so well.
Yeah, totally.
One more day.
Stone tablet.
So anyway. But yeah, no, and I also really love that when... Because, Peter's no, you can't be real. This is Mysterio or something. You're not... I watched Norman die. So Norman proves it by ripping his jacket, his suit open, and revealing the massive scar he's got from the glider impaling him and driving into his body. Because in the movie they just show him getting impaled. In the comic it literally rams into him and then just keeps driving into his chest until it runs out of fuel. And Peter watches it because he's just well, this has been some messed up stuff today. But yeah. And speaking of the Doc Ock, I actually kind of liked Carolyn Trainer as Lady Doc.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of good stories with her, but I actually like the idea of a female successor to Doc Ock, just because I think
she's actually returned in the comics.
Oh, she has? I thought
recently she's come back.
Okay.
Or at least a form of Lady Ock has come back.
She's awkward because
I think that's actually the first we've seen her since this.
Yeah. She's awkward because the whole her whole motive's I want to merge the real world with virtual reality. And I'm oh yeah, we're at that point in the 90s, aren't we? So for those of you who don't know, Because nowadays people get how computers work, but in the 90s, we believed that there were little people in the computer that made it work. I know you were too young for this, but like when
I was born in 95. So.
But for those of us who were born in like the beginning of the 90s and remember growing up like in that point in time in the 90s, literally they believed that like computers were so fanciful, like there was like a digital world inside the computer. Like there was a time where like Digimon was actually believed that could be a possibility by stupid people or small children like me. But so like her whole thing was she wanted to create this thing called a virtual reality bomb. And it would somehow create like a merging of our world with virtual reality. It's just
very
bad.
90, very 90-ish.
Like, cause this was before the Matrix, where it made it kind of more sensible, but like it didn't really work. But like I liked her design. I actually like the idea of her like being like this lady scientist. I think Peter has like no female villains that really stick.
Yeah,
and
it's not for lack of trying.
It's not for lack of trying.
Belladonna,
like Belladonna, the White Rabbits. When the Venom symbiote went on to Brock's ex-wife, kind of. But like, there's not really a lot. Well, I guess Screwball.
We don't talk about anybody else who's played the PS4 game. We do not talk about Screwball. At all. Don't you mention?
I didn't even
like. Back here having flashbacks now.
Imagine we're reading their brand new day when she showed up. I couldn't stand her. Oh my god. But yeah, like there's a lot of really neat ideas in the Clone Saga. The problem is you have to wade through a lot of the fat to get to the good parts. Like the death of Judas Traveler, so we no longer had to deal with him.
There's a couple different ways too. You can buy Clone Saga. You can get it like I did, which is the big hardback bound omnibuses. You can get them in it's the Ben Reilly epic, isn't it? The trade paperbacks. Those are the ones you have.
I do.
You can get them like that. You can get Real Clone Saga is its own trade. It's not very long.
Personally, for me,
I think you can read Real Clone Saga in like one sitting.
Yeah. Personally, for me, if you do want to get the big trades of it, I would recommend getting the floppies just because they're a little bit they're like $20 like a book. Yeah, whereas the omnibuses are pretty pricey.
I paid I think $90 for the first volume of Clone Saga, and that was on sale on Amazon. Normally I think it's like $120. Yeah. Volume 2 is around $80 or $90, and then Ben Reilly Omnibus, I think right now because it's brand new, is retailing for $120. But these are like the very big, nice hardback bound omnibuses.
Real quick, since we don't have a lot of time left. I just wanted to wanted to recommend some of the stories that are actually really good in that.
Because we have 7 minutes left.
Yeah. So I would recommend reading the Ben Reilly I forget what it's called. I think it's like the Renegade, like the Renegade or something returns.
The Renegade cut.
The story where Ben first dons the Scarlet Spider outfit and fights Venom, because I actually really like that. It's a really solid story that like has, Ben establishing himself as a new character, his fight with Venom, which he actually does something that Peter never did until that point, actually defeat Venom by himself. Which later on in the mid 90s they finally fix that, where like Peter can actually hold his own against Venom, because like otherwise he needed someone's help. I'd also recommend I want to say it's the Ben Reilly journals or something like that. Basically, there was a bunch of stories.
It's the Reilly files.
Yeah, the Reilly files. Basically, it's the history of Ben as after he wakes up from the smokestack and his journeys to try and find a new life.
Do you remember the show? Because we work at a retail store, and we had a Roku for a while in our break room, and remember the show we were watching?
The show Renegade.
Yeah, Renegade was on. And Tobey Maguire was Tobey Maguire was in it.
Oh no, that was an episode of Chuck Norris.
Yeah, it was an episode of Walker, and like I'm looking at it, and we're like, is that Tobey Maguire? And like we finally figured out it was, and I look at him, I'm like, Ah, so this is what Ben Riley was doing.
Yeah, we did. That was
fighting-
actually.
he
Yeah,
was
no, you and I
helping
were like, oh, this is what Ben Riley was doing.
He was fighting.
He was fighting
helping
like
Chuck.
drug smugglers or
Yeah, he was helping
whatever,
Chuck take down some drug smugglers.
Whatever bullshit
Perfectly
Chuck
in
Norris,
character.
Whatever bullshit Chuck Norris has on that stupid ass.
That was
TV show.
perfectly in character too. That's the best.
I
part
used
of
to.
that.
I grew up watching that show.
So did I.
I'd recommend that. I'd recommend
Maximum clonage.
No, I would not recommend maximum clonage. What the hell is wrong with you?
Oh, you should know. There's a lot wrong with me. I think the Clone Saga is like one of the best Spider-Man things ever written. That alone should tell some people what's wrong with me.
I'd probably recommend most of the stories where Ben was Spider-Man, just because those are honestly some of the better parts.
I think you can get those in the Ben Riley omnibus now. I don't know if that's you can get that elsewhere, but I know that's the current volume that's out.
Granted, not every story in that part is super great. Like the issue where Spider-Man spends, or where Ben spends most of an issue tied up thanks to the greatest villain ever, the Looter. Do you know who the Looter is?
Yes, I know who the Looter is.
Okay, well, to be fair, I know some obscure Spider-Man characters, and for those of you who don't know, the Looter is this lame-ass burglar who stole a meteorite from a museum, and he cracked it open, and this gas came out, and it gave him, like, super strength. And, so he uses that in his gadgeteering skills to, do robberies, but got foiled by Spider-Man. And so he captures Ben, not knowing that, because, I think Ben got into, a fight with the Dragon Man, and he was pretty beat, so, the guy caught him while he was unconscious, and stole his web shooters. And so, granted, it's really clever by Ben, because Ben's like, so, how long have you had me strung up here? About 45 minutes. So Ben makes him talk out what his plan is, so that eventually the webbing would dissolve enough that he could just rip himself off the wall and beat this dude's ass. And there's a kind of funny part, because he steals a bunch of lame Z-lister weapons. He has Stiltsman's stilts, the Ringer's rings. He has a buzzsaw from some villain. I want to say it's Hurricane or whatever.
It's Buzzsaw. It's Bonesaw McGraw. That's what it is.
It's a really lame story, but I love the idea where Ben's like, oh, okay, so I just got a few more minutes. I'll just let him talk.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I think like I said, to me the essential story is really just the death of Aunt May. That issue is an essential.
Oh yeah, Amazing 400 is really
Amazing
good.
400, and then the finale.
Yeah. I think it's called no, it's not called the final chapter. I think it's called Epilogue. I forget what it's called.
I think it's called Epilogue. I'd have to go back and look.
But basically, those are
this being my favorite story. I don't exactly know the parts of it very well.
Same. I do kind of like the story Funeral for an Octopus, where basically a bunch of villains are auctioning off Doc Ock's limbs, and you get this part where Peter actually has to rescue the limbs, and so he manages to finagle a VR helmet, or some sort of helmet that allows him to control the arms, which is where you get that Spider-Man with the Doc Ock arms from the TAS show.
Yeah.
When they were doing the alternate dimensions. But yeah, and I know we probably didn't do a very good job of trying to defend the Clone Saga, but
it's very convoluted. It's one of my favorite stories, but I'm the first to admit it's very convoluted. There is a lot going on.
Yeah.
It was in all the titles. So you kind of have to and like he said, you kind of have to fish through it to find a lot of the good stuff. But to me, the best thing about Clone Saga and how interconnected it is to MC2, as we'll discuss in our next vlog, is that you don't need to read all of Clone Saga to know what's going on in MC2. You just have to know kind of the basics.
Yeah.
Because I want to say early on, MC2 doesn't really bring up a lot of stuff.
Oh, no. Tom DeFalco, knowing Tom DeFalco, he brings it up all the time.
Not at least he brings it up in the first couple issues.
Well, probably not.
Later on, it becomes a bigger deal.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but early on, he was kind of okay, let's just get this rolling.
I mean, I'm sure he restrained himself, but knowing Tom DeFalco, the way I know this man, this man is the Marvel encyclopedia. He knows his shit, and unlike Dan Slott, he's actually good at writing.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, I think we're gonna wrap that up. We kind of have to run it on the clock here. Like I said, look for yourself if you really want to know stuff about the Clone Saga. It's easy to find nowadays, but it used to be a chore to find anything about it back in the day, but now it's really easy. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Sorry it's a little bit short, but hopefully the next one we get out will be one of our traditional good ones. Well, not. I think
I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. I'm Zongetsu134.
I'm Average Joe Squad.
And as always, we ask you,
Remember the hyphen.
Take care.